Okay, so there are 5 compulsory essays and then 1 optional essay. So each essay is has a maximum word limit of 250 words. For University of Edinburgh, for UBC, I think there are like 6 essays too. The maximum word count is 300. But for University of Edinburgh, it's 6 essays, 5 compulsory, 1 optional, 250 word count for each of them.
Okay, the optional one, you don't have to write it, right?
You don't have to write it, but you don't want to take a gamble.
So you did not take a gamble?
I did not. I wrote, each of my essay was literally around 248 words out of 250, 248, 249. Some of them were 250 on the dot. I was not sparing any word.
So can you?
Okay, so I was trying to recollect. So the first essay I was asked was, how did I meet the key selection criteria for MasterCard? And the background context to that was, they said that MasterCard aims to award scholarship to young Africans who are intellectually talented and have demonstrated leadership ability. So tell us how you meet these key selection criteria. Okay, so first of all, I gave a professional context about myself. And my professional context, I meant a little bit of what I studied in school, what I graduated with. Then I mentioned something around my work experience, my volunteering experience, and my virtual internship experiences. Then I went a little further to mention that I was currently doing a 1-year program that was co-sponsored by MasterCard, that is focused in entrepreneurship and innovation, which of course is exactly the same course I'm applying to University of Edinburgh. Then the second paragraph, if I remember correctly, I mentioned stuff around how while I was in school, there were a little bit of challenges, really. But one of the ways I learned to support myself was to take part-time jobs with Travel, OLX, and Jumia. And I mentioned some few things I learned that were critical to the course I was applying to. And I also mentioned that in spite of all of the odds and that I did some part-time courses, there were some competitions, business competitions that I participated in, like Unilever African Idea Trophy competition, where my team came fourth. We are among the top 6 finalists from in Nigeria. Where even in spite of the hold that I was facing some challenges, I could still participate in something like that and still emerge as one of the finest brains in Nigeria. And the next paragraph was when I mentioned how MasterCard and how the study at Edinburgh is going to enable me to make impact in a specific field that I was interested in. And one other thing I think I forgot to mention was I also mentioned my leadership experiences. I mentioned that I had experience from primary school up to my university, leading as the head boy, primary school head boy in secondary school, president of also residents in University of Lagos, and I had a personal NGO where I had impacted more than 5,000 people, and then I tied everything back to how MasterCard Scholarship is going to enable me to become a transformative leader and someone who, of course, is going to make massive changes in Africa.
How were you able to write all this? 250 words.
There was something I was jokingly telling my friend the other time, that writing a 250-word essay is somehow more difficult than writing a 500-word essay. So you have to critically look at what are the major things I have to put in these things. Even though I cannot say that I was the head boy in primary school, secondary school, university. So is there a way I can condense everything to make it reflect that I have led in 6 organizations, right? I think that will save more word than mentioning the specific places you've led before. So there were some places I condensed where I had multiple awards. I only mentioned like 2 and then say like 10 others, where I had impacted many people, where I taught students in more than 20 schools. I just condensed everything together and I was just refining it and pruning it again and again. That took me some weeks before I could get a final perfect essay that I submitted.
Okay. So now, the second essay is...
Okay, so the second essay that I was asked was, I was asked on, I should show my potential to be a transformation leader. So what leadership, what community engagement have I had in the time past that could show that I am a leader? Literally, that was what the question was about. So what leadership experience have I demonstrated that can show that I am a transformative leader? So again, I think one of the things I learned that really helped me was Kayode Alabi's story, when he mentioned that it is good to share a novel idea. An idea means that something you've not carried out, but it just stops in your head. But this is what I want to do, and this is the impact I want to make. So I think in Kayode's story, he mentioned something he is already doing, right? Something he's already doing, what the impact of that thing is. and then he now mentioned how he hopes to scale it, and then what scaling is would look like, what is the impact that scaling would look like, and of course how MasterCard and also studying at Edinburgh is going to help me. So I deployed the same approach. So in 2019, after the completion of my National Youth Service Corps, I had waited at home for 6 months searching for jobs. I had applied to different jobs, numerous jobs, right? But in that process, I was part of Faith Foundation and Blue Advisory for as a research assistant for a project they were carrying out about knowing sustainability of businesses among small businesses in Nigeria. So I was their assistant. I was a research assistant in Ogun State. So I started by saying that. So in 2019, I was part of Faith Foundation as a research assistant in Ogun State, where I interviewed, interviewed some business owners. And one of the major things I found out was that these guys, they lack business management skills, and that is costing them XYZ. I then went on to say that the idea I'm working on to create an impact in my community is to create a kind of a community or a platform where people can learn about business management skills. I mentioned specific things that I want to teach them. Then I also mentioned what the impact of learning those things is going to be. Then I went further to say that, aside this, the community is going to be a platform where these people can interact with one another, or where they can learn XYZ that is probably going to enable them to create jobs. I mentioned X amount of jobs they will create, and I also mentioned that the community is going to help them to also create funding linkages. So I mentioned X millions of dollars that the community is going to help them to be able to create, by linking them to all these fundings. And I went a little bit further to say that I plan to partner with XYZ people who are already doing ABC, in the entrepreneurship space in Nigeria. Then I tied everything back to, if we're able to work with these people, the impact we are going to create is XYZ by 2030. And MasterCard and study at Edinburgh is going to allow me to gain better understanding about how to do this. So just to make a recap, I first of all gave a context about what I did in 2019 and what my major finding was about. And I mentioned what I want to do, right, and the impact that will create. I mentioned the people I want to partner with and the impact that is going to create. And I mentioned how MasterCard, how MasterCard Foundation Scholarship is going to help me to do all of this through my study in University of Edinburgh. So that was basically, on the way I thought about my second essay about what idea do I have that can create impact in my community. So I think one of the essays the third essay was how would my course of study allow me to create impact in my country or in my continent. I think it was something around how the course I want to study, is going to allow me to create impact. Again, the background I gave was to give a statistics about small businesses in Nigeria. How small businesses can currently, I think the SMEs, they create about 60% of employment in Nigeria. Then I mentioned that this was the statistic quoted by PwC. I gave a little context about what potential those small businesses have beyond creating jobs, how they can facilitate international trades, how they can boost our GDPs and stuff. I tried to condense everything in that first paragraph, Then I went a little bit further to say that, but these small businesses, they are facing XYZ challenges, which is critically impacting on their abilities to maximizing the potential of in boosting GDP, creating X amount of jobs, and even facilitating international trade. Then I say that my course of study is going to allow me to learn XYZ. So I started by mentioning some of the course modules that I will be taking. Something like entrepreneurial finance, for instance. I mentioned that entrepreneurial finance, because I want to create a platform, right, that is going to create funding linkages, that is going to be there to teach budding entrepreneurs and small business owners to learn about really critical things they need to really boost their businesses. That entrepreneurial finance is going to allow me to know what funding linkages, right, can we use to connect these small business owners to funding opportunities. I mentioned how that knowledge is going to help me to create an impact. I went a little bit further to say that there's also another course called Method of Business Research. So Method of Business Research, I mentioned that is going to allow me to know about different research or methodologies that can be used to better understand the entrepreneurship ecosystem in Nigeria, and how that knowledge is going to be extremely useful to policymakers to better understanding different entrepreneurs in maybe Ogun State, in Abuja, in Kano, and how they can deploy specific policies that can help them. And went a little bit further to say that the UK, all right, and my course, of course, is one of the most renowned schools in the world, and I mentioned that studying in the UK is going to allow me to develop critical knowledge about policy making, and how that in itself is going to be vitally important to the work I'm going to create in my community. And I tied everything back to say that there are some faculty members like Professor Amechi. I think I mentioned about 2 faculty members. I mentioned specific things they are doing that are really going to be extremely important for what I want to do. And I try to tie everything back to say that MasterCard, right, as a community that is going to, allow me to learn XYZ. They do Biobab Summit. They do entrepreneurial awards. Quite a number of programs that are pertinent and that come naturally for so what I was trying to say is that there are some programs, there are some trainings that come with studying entrepreneurship and innovation in the University of Edinburgh Business School, and I mentioned how those things are going to allow me to make the impact I want to make in my country, which is in supporting small business owners, small businesses, and to access opportunities and also to maximize their growth potential. So that was really how I thought about the essay, and I tried to condense everything.
Next essay.
So the next essay was so I think one of the final essay, I can't remember the third one is, okay, so this next essay was, what kind of associations would I like to make in University of Edinburgh while studying my course? Again, I was really thanking Oludayo, the way he thought about it. I was also, it made me to be able to think about my own. I mentioned how I'm going to, kind of associations, how I'm going to form. So I mentioned a specific lecturer. I don't know why I've forgotten her name right now. I mentioned her name. I went into the university website to search for what she's doing. So she's leading this entrepreneurship venture program where they are connecting, I think businesses in Scotland to opportunities and also to trainings. I mentioned how I'm going to interact with her to learn about how she's thinking around it, and how I can also tell her about the business, about the solution I want to create in my country, and how specific insight from her is really going to be very helpful in translating that idea into reality. I mentioned Biobab Summit, that I'm going to have the opportunity to meet with diverse scholars from across Africa when we go to Kenya is it Kenya or Rwanda for our meeting. How I'm going to leverage on that relationship to do XYZ. So I mentioned like 2-3 things I was going to do, and I tried to coin it with very good English. I also mentioned how from Edinburgh, I'm going to start networking with organizations like so there is one MasterCard organization here in Nigeria, the Youth African Youth Works, that are basically partnering with different organizations like Data Science Nigeria, like Babagonas, to create impacts in Nigeria. I mentioned how I'm going to partner with them, and where the goal of our partnership is going to be to train youths and small business owners in remote areas that current activities are not being extended to. I'm going to take that partnership, to supporting those people. And I think I also mentioned, the alumni network, right? I'm going to use my stay in Edinburgh to really network with the alumni, to build relationship that can altogether drive transformative changes in Africa. And I think the major thing I mentioned to conclude everything, was how I'm going to tie all of this together. I think the last one I mentioned was on my long-term goal, because I envisage I'm going to work with Lagos Business School. I'm going to use the platform of being in Edinburgh to also try to see what professors, what faculty members in Lagos Business School can I begin to have conversation with. And also in my current school, Nigerian University of Technology and Management, I can begin to position myself as an expert to come back and work for them. Maybe not in the short term, but definitely in the long term. And how doing all of this is going to really create sustainable changes in Africa. So really everything I've said are just frameworks. So I try to put everything down in words and ensure that there is coherence, and then everything really made a lot of sense. So the final essay I wrote, which was the optional one, was, is there something about you that you would like MasterCard to know? Something else about this that you like MasterCard to know? I started off by saying that I gave context about my family. My dad is late. I'm also privileged to be the only person in my family, so I've been able to, go for, maybe currently going for my master's and even to tertiary education. I gave it that little context that this is what is happening in my family, but against all of these odds, I was a overall best student in my primary school. When I was doing my diploma in University of Lagos, I had 4.85 my first semester, 4.57 my second semester. Altogether, I had 4.67. I'm a first class guy, even though I didn't finish first class. I mentioned all the competitions I participated in. I took first position in some of them. Even in University of Lagos, I did Unilever. I was director of organizations. I mentioned organizations I volunteered for, about 6 of them. Organizations that I was the campus ambassadors for. I mentioned organizations I was the president, like in my CDS group when I was doing NYS, I was the president. When I was in Unilag, I was the president of my Hall of Residence. When I was in Lagos Business School for my mini MBA, I was the president of my cohorts. When I was doing a graduate finishing academic program in Benin, I was the vice president of my cohort. I mentioned all of that even in spite of the challenges I faced while growing up, I was still able to do all of this for myself. And more importantly, I mentioned that I didn't have really a lot of money because studying in the UK is expensive, and I wasn't even sure that I have up to like £500 as savings in my account. I tried to paint that fact that this scholarship program is going to help me to win, to be able to access perhaps the best education in the UK and perhaps one of the best schools, business school to even study in. And I tried to tie everything together that if I'm able to do all of this, if I have this opportunity to study in Edinburgh, these are the impact I would make, and these are the people that are going to benefit from it. So even though they didn't ask me to say anything about my family, to say anything about my leadership experiences, to say anything about my volunteer experiences and some of the key achievements I've had, I found a way to chip every single thing in and then to tell a compelling story. I may say that the University of Edinburgh doesn't ask for CV. At least in our time, they didn't ask for a CV. So whatever good thing it is that is exciting about you, you really have to find a way to chip every single thing in a way that will be very interesting. And that was exactly what I did in my essays. So if I'm going to give a final advice to any person that is watching me right now, go online, like I mentioned, watch as many videos as you can watch. Watch videos of people sharing their stories, people telling you how they thought about their essays. Go online, look for articles about how to write winning award-winning scholarship essays, and then think about ways you can condense all of this information to write something compelling for yourself. And altogether, keep praying. The same essay I submitted for MasterCard that got me scholarship in University of Edinburgh, I took it a little bit to submit in UBC. I was rejected. I built on this same essay when I was submitting for Chevening. I was rejected on my studies, but the same essay got me MasterCard scholarship. And someone that mentored me indirectly, mentioned that how he submitted an essay to University of Edinburgh. The same essay he submitted to University of Edinburgh that was rejected was accepted by UBC. Their dynamics. Ensure you do your best, no matter the amount of money you spend on data, right, on watching videos like this on the internet. Your first stipend is going to cover every single thing. It's an investment that is worth it, and I'm sure you're going to get a maximum value when you do all of this.
Final question: how were you able to tie the essays together to make share a holistic story?
Okay, so first of all, knowing what program am I applying for, right? That was very important for me. So in knowing the program I was applying for, I thought about what is the best description, professional description I could give myself. I could say I'm an educationist when I'm actually applying for maybe an engineering program, but that they don't really tally. So what in your experience, all right? I looked at something in my experience that aligns with the program I'm applying for, and that was the first thing I started with. And when I was ending my essay, I ensured that what I was writing in the concluding paragraph was leading the discussion to the next thing I was going to write about. So I looked at the essays one by one. I wrote them. I wrote every single thing out. And I was looking at it, whether this story is linking into the next story that I was writing. And I think one thing that was very helpful to me was I had read different articles online. I was reading books. There's how an interesting book really, how the chapter 1 is going to lead into chapter 2, not how the chapter 2 is going to be distinct and extremely different from chapter 1. So I think that when you devote yourself to these kinds of readings, when you read stuff that are well written, well articulated, it's how they are going to also shape your thinking process and how you put your stories together. So for me, knowing the course I was applying for and then finding out to link all of my stories together, I think that was very expedient in writing the essays for this scholarship.